The International Criminal Court claims there are reasonable grounds to believe war crimes have been committed in Ukraine. It comes after Russia announced the partial mobilisation of troops and has threatened to use nuclear weapons. Joining me now live is co-chair of the Australian Federation of Ukrainian Organisations, Stefan Romaniw. Stefan, thank you very much for joining us. What will be the impact of reservist mobilisation? Will it escalate the threat already in Ukraine?
Good morning. Look, I think Putin's sabre-rattling and his reckless approach to international standards is now being condemned, has been condemned for a long time. He's now talking about not only 300,000, he's talking about 1 million, he's talking about nuclear weapons and so on. There are three statements that resonate with me over this whole issue over the last couple of days. And the first one is Penny Wong, and then supported by Simon Birmingham, that Russia alone is responsible for this illegal and immoral war. And the only way it's going to change is if Russia withdraws out of Ukraine. We saw Lavrov walking out of the Security Council again. The foreign minister, the UK foreign minister, who said that Russia doesn't want to hear collective condemnation, so we take no responsibility. And the third comment is one that our ambassador made the other day when the question of the whole nuclear issue arose. And the question was, well, if he does that, will there be tit for tat from the West? And I think the ambassador's comment, there would be no tit for tat because there'd be no world left. This is a time now where the world, whilst we've been supporting, we've had international support, we have the UN speaking about these things, demanding. It is now time for the world to come more closely together to make sure that a number of things happen. One, we need that military aid, and we call on the Australian government and international community to give Ukraine the military aid it needs. Secondly, on the issue of the war crimes, you know, you just showed us the pictures of the grand final. That is normal life. I mean, why can't Ukraine have normal life? We have these mass murders. We have the torture. We have the international court saying we need to investigate. Yes, not only do we need to investigate, but at the same time, we need to bring people to responsibility. And if never, now is the time to state that Russia is a terrorist state. Putin is now totally out of control. He's humiliated, he's losing, and again, he's trying to blackmail the world. And what's he doing? He's trying to buy time. So I think the international community coming together at the UN is a very, very strong message. Lavrov walking out. And this is the same people you want to invite to the G20 who won't listen to the international community, won't even listen to the condemnation and just walk out. And not only that, but if you listen to Lavrov and the Russian ambassador here in Australia, they pretend that this whole issue started with Ukraine. Even the concept of having a referendum in somebody else's country. I mean, it's ludicrous. And I think the last couple of days have shown he's out of control. The world really needs now. You know, we've got 193 countries who wanted to hear to Zelensky. He's got a 5-point plan. We ought to support that 5-point plan. And as Penny Wong said, the only way to deal with this is for Russia to leave Ukrainian soil and stop trying to impose a different sovereignty in terms of Ukraine.
Penny Wong also said that the Australian government is actively considering a request from Ukraine for additional support, including more Bushmaster vehicles. How urgent is a decision on that?
I think it's critical. We saw the role of the Bushmasters a couple of weeks ago in the liberation of a part of Ukraine. Every little bit helps, and I think this is the message we're trying to get through. Somebody, you know, would have said some time ago, well, what are the Bushmasters going to do? Have a look at what the Bushmasters did over the last couple of weeks. Any support is welcome. Obviously, the Australian government is now looking at providing more Bushmasters, and we urge them to do that. We urge them to keep up the sanctions. We urge them to consider the whole issue of Russia as a terrorist state. We urge the Australian government to continue to be a leader I think we're a leader in the way we're supporting Ukraine. The previous government, this government they stood and stand with Ukraine. And I think today the Australian public also stands with Ukraine, because this is what's happening is immoral. It's immoral. This is not the sort of world we want to live in. You know, I've got grandchildren. You know, we've all got children. What sort of a world do we want? And if we want a bully telling us how we're going to run our world, then I think we've got to say stop. And the last couple of days have just shown he's totally out of control. There has to be strong action. We saw President Biden speaking uncategorically in terms of support of Ukraine. The international community, the Indian Prime Minister is now speaking about that. China, the question, we don't understand what's happening here. You need to stop this. So we do have the international support, but the next couple of days, I think, are going to be crucial. This business of mobilising, we see what's happening on the streets of Russia. The Russian people don't want this. And you know what? If you get out in the street, possibly 15 years in jail. So he's losing control. And the other thing I just want to point out is that some of the people around him, some of the oligarchs that have sanctions put on them in America and Canada, and we see here in Australia that the Australian government's been taken to court by a Russian oligarch saying, hey, don't put the sanctions on me. You know, I'm only a tier 2 friend of Putin. I'm not a real friend. No, we need to hit everything that's close to Putin very, very hard. And his collaborators, and you know, everybody just talks about Putin. What about the Russian parliament? What about Kirill, the head of the Moscow Patriarchate? All those people who said to Putin, go forth and fight this because you're a defender of the Russians. Nonsense.
Stefan, Romaniw, always appreciate your time. We have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.